The wooden floorboards of the general store creaked beneath Sadie's boots, though no one seemed to hear them. The laughter at the counter, the rustling of grain sacks, and the clink of tin cups drowned out her presence like a tide swallowing a whisper. She stood just inside the doorway, holding tight to the leather strap of her satchel, her eyes wide and wet from crying. But no one looked her way. It had taken all her courage to get there. She'd walked 5 miles in worn shoes with no soles, one broken, the other held together by a shoelace she'd found in the dirt. Her lip was still swollen, a dark purple welt forming under her right eye. She hadn't spoken to anyone since the scream that escaped her throat last night, when she'd finally run. They say people aren't kind in small towns. That's what her mama used to say before the sickness took her and left Sadie in the care of her uncle. But standing there in that doorway, her body aching, her stomach cramping from hunger, Sadie realized kindness wasn't always loud. Sometimes it hid behind silence, or maybe it just wasn't there at all. She shuffled over to the counter, her voice trembling as she asked, "Please, do you have any day-old bread?" The storekeeper, a thin man with a clean mustache and tired eyes, glanced up, frowned, and went back to tallying his ledgers. "We don't give handouts," he muttered, without looking her in the eye. Sadie nodded and stepped back, her heart sinking. A woman in a bonnet noticed her, looked her up and down, then turned away with a sigh. 2 boys near the Cracker Barrel laughed as if she were a joke. The shame hit harder than her uncle's belt ever had. She found a quiet corner between a barrel of oats and a stack of chipped enamel pans. The shadows there felt safer. Her fingers trembled as she opened the satchel and pulled out a worn Bible, her mama's, the only thing she still had. She tucked herself in tight and tried not to cry. But the tears came anyway, warm and quiet. And that's when she noticed the boots, scuffed, dusty, and still. A man's boots, planted just feet away. She looked up slowly, expecting another stranger to scold her for being in the way. But he didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there for a long moment. Then, with a creak of leather and a sigh like it came from somewhere deep, the man took off his hat. And when Sadie finally looked into his face, she saw something she hadn't seen in a long time. Softness. The man knelt down slowly, hat in one hand, the other resting gently on his knee. His badge caught the light, a dull silver star that looked worn like everything else about him. "You got a name, little one?" he asked, voice gravelly but kind. Sadie hesitated, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Sadie," she whispered. He nodded like he'd been expecting it. "I'm Sheriff Boone." His eyes scanned her face, taking in the bruises, the cracked lip, the way her shoulders hunched like she expected to be hit just for breathing. But he didn't ask questions, not the kind most grown-ups asked. Instead, he said something strange. "I used to know a girl named Sadie. She grew up too fast, too." She didn't know how to respond, so she stayed quiet. But something in his tone made her chest ache in a new way. Not fear, not hunger. Something gentler, like remembering a lullaby. He stood, then turned to the rest of the store. "Anyone here gonna offer this child a piece of bread?" His voice wasn't loud, but it had weight. The store fell into silence. The woman in the bonnet looked down. The boys stopped laughing. "She's been crying in that corner for 10 minutes, he said, quieter now. "And y'all just stepped over her." No one spoke. Even the storekeeper avoided his gaze. Sheriff Boone sighed. "Fine," he muttered. Then he walked behind the counter, opened a drawer, and pulled out a few coins. He dropped them on the wood, then grabbed a loaf of bread and a small wedge of cheese. "Come on," he said to Sadie, handing her the food. She followed him out into the dust and sun, blinking at the brightness. They sat on the porch steps. Boone passed her a tin cup of water from the pump, then watched quietly as she ate like she hadn't in days. Because she hadn't. He didn't push her to talk, just sat, chewing a toothpick, eyes scanning the street like always. But eventually the silence grew too big, and Sadie whispered, "I ran away." Boone nodded. "I figured. For my uncle, She looked down, ashamed. Boone said nothing for a moment. Then, without looking at her, he spoke. "My old man was mean too. Used to say kindness was weakness. I believed that once, until I met someone who proved him wrong." Sadie watched him. There was something sad in his eyes, even when he smiled. "She gone now," he added quietly. "Been a few years." "Was she your daughter?" Sadie asked. Boone blinked. "Number my wife. She wanted kids, but..." He trailed off. Sadie nodded. She understood what silence meant now. It meant something mattered so much. The words wouldn't come out. Boone leaned forward, elbows on knees. "You got somewhere safe to go?" Sadie shook her head. "I think I was just hoping someone might see me." He took a deep breath and stood. Well, someone did. Then, right there on the porch, in front of a town that had ignored her, Sheriff Boone reached up and unclipped the badge from his vest. He looked at it for a long second, then placed it gently on the step beside her. "That badge never meant much," he said. "But today, maybe it did something good." Sadie stared at the star. It shimmered in the light like a promise. Sheriff Boone didn't say much after that. He stood beside Sadie for a while, arms folded, like he was watching something far off in the hills. But Sadie could feel something had shifted. Not just in him, in her. The badge still sat on the porch step between them, its metal edge glinting. For a moment, she thought he might pick it up again, but he didn't. Instead, he turned to her. "There's an old schoolhouse out by Juniper Ridge. Not many kids there, but Miss Talbot teaches reading and figures. She's got a spare bed in the back room. Wouldn't be the first runaway she's helped." Sadie blinked. "You want me to go there?" He scratched his chin. "I think you deserve more than hiding in corners, Sadie. And she'll teach you to stand tall." She looked down at her torn dress, her dusty shoes. "But what if they don't want me?" Boone crouched, lowering himself until his eyes were level with hers. "If they ever make you feel unwanted, you come find me again. Understand?" She nodded slowly, and for the first time in days, maybe weeks, she felt steady. They walked together to the edge of town. He borrowed a gentle bay mare from the livery and helped her into the saddle. Before she rode off, she turned back to see him standing there, arms crossed again, the town quiet behind him. "Sheriff?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Not anymore." "Well, Mr. Boone then," she said, voice small. "Thank you." His gaze softened. "Sadie?" "Yes?" "You changed something in me today." She didn't know what to say, so she smiled. Just a little. Then she nudged the mare forward, heading for Juniper Ridge, and whatever lay beyond. A week later, Boone sat alone on the porch again, sipping black coffee as the sun slid low. He'd thought about that girl every day since. Then one morning, a folded note arrived at the sheriff's office. addressed not to Sheriff Boone, but simply to Boone. Inside, in crooked handwriting, were 4 words, "They see me now." Boone smiled as he tucked the note into his shirt pocket. The town never did get a new sheriff, but some said they didn't need one. After all, the girl no one saw had taught them all how to look again.